Hey, what's up everyone? Sean here, and welcome to another new video. So, in my early 20s, I worked a lot of retail, primarily in tech stuff. So I worked at the Apple retail store at my local mall for a couple of years, as well as working in Best Buy retail store as well for a couple of years as well. And every June, pretty much of every year, there would always be a massive influx of either newly graduated high school students or even college students that were coming in, and they always came in right around like June or July time frame. And that's why I'm making this video right now, is because I was always remembering that it always happened right around June or July, where all these again brand new college students or people going into college would always come in and look and either start looking for their first computer, to like first school like of their own, or to get a computer for college again or whatever it might be. And it's funny because when I was thinking back to my 20s, when I worked in all those stores and answered all these questions from kids and their parents, and had that experience with them one on one in person, I always kind of got asked the same questions of like, oh, what would you recommend? And then usually these kids would have either a budget of some sort, or they could get whatever they wanted, or either or. And then they'd always would tell me what they were going to school for in some cases, and in some cases they didn't know. In some cases they had a really fine-tuned idea, or they were pre-med already, or a nursing student, or computer science, or art even. And again, so it was my job at that point in time to ask them all these open-ended questions and give them recommendations, because most of the time, most of these kids or even their parents were kind of like over aiming their budget a little bit, and spending almost too much money on most cases on whatever device or computer they wanted to get in for themselves or for their educational experience. So with all that being said, I wanted to make a video that's not comprehensive. I mean, I guess it could be comprehensive in a way, but my advice of in this day and age of 2026, of where I think we're at for technology for college students. Because even for me, like I myself am going back to school again for the fourth time now, to hopefully finish up my degree this time for my bachelor's degree for computer science, with a minor in AI, as well as for cybersecurity. That's what I'm going back for. And I mean, so I'm gonna talk about what I'm choosing to go back with for equipment, what else you need or may not need, and how much you should really be spending roughly. Now, I will preface everything by saying that no one is the same. This is not a one a one off, or this is not like a covering every basis of everyone's budget or college education kind of thing. Everyone is going to do what they want to do, and get what they want to get. But I just wanted to put out my advice and my opinion on what I think is best for everyone. Now, I did make a small list of all the most kind of general, again, not everything, but general students that, again, that are either going to college for the first time or going back or whatever it might be, and this is who they generally are. And this is even from when I went, when I was my first time in college, which was around 2007, 2008, back then, 20 years ago. And so just kind of like the students I feel like that there are in college, no matter what college you go to, you find these kind of students. So without putting them all into one thing, I feel like there's a general student, as I would call it, and those are the ones that are usually undeclared students. So they don't know what their major is, they don't know what they were going to school for. They're either just doing their generals for a while, or they are going to be, at least initially, doing like they're just going for like a business educational degree, or again just a generalized degree where they don't know where they want to go yet, and they have time to decide that later on. The next student type overall, roughly, is an art student, and these are the ones that usually are, again, in art schools specifically. So they have a specialized school that they go to for art, where it's all art classes, and drawing and painting, and in theory of art, and all those kind of things. There's what I'm doing, which is the computer science student, which is, again, mostly, again, building computers, understanding the language of computers, how it works, how it doesn't work, and how to build and learn the code, and all those things that are involved with that. And then, of course, there is the STEM stuff. So, and again, without going through all of them, there is primarily the nursing one, so nursing students. And of course, there's pre-med, MD, physician, PhD, all those kind of things too. And those are all different levels, of course, but kind of, again, overall, a one big coverage kind of thing. Now, to keep it simple, they're all very, very different needs, and what they usually use for school is all very, very different. But at the same time, it's not. Now, the biggest thing I always gave for advice to any college student, any kid going into school, is to really decide how mobile you want to be. And even like for me and my like for my wife and I, like we have two very different personality types of how we learn the best, what we used to learn, how we want to learn, how we wanted to how we use the tools in our daily lives for learning, and so on and so forth. So for me, I'm a little bit more old school than she is in my own way, where I kind of swear by using a desktop, or not a desktop computer, but a laptop on my desktop. So I currently, again, I edit on currently a 16-inch MacBook Pro. I've had it for 5 years. It works well for me, and I enjoy having the full desktop experience. I don't really like desktop where it sits on your desktop and doesn't move. I don't like that kind of stationary style. I like the ability to personally be able to take my computer anywhere I go and have, for the most part, the best of everything on it, as far as sound for speakers, as well as the biggest screen possible that's made by Apple in this case, and all that comes with that as well. And then she is the opposite, where she has, for her college experience, she bought a 11-inch iPad Pro M5 chip edition. But the thing about that one is that if you do, and so again, this is where I say you have to decide for the most part if you want to be mobile, meaning like iPad or a Mac or desktop or whatever it might be. Now, some students will go absolutely insane, in my opinion, as I would say, or they will buy both, or they'll buy an iPad to have absolutely insane mobility for everything on the go to bring to class, and to build and buy an Apple Pencil in most cases, or a Bluetooth keyboard, and be able to do all that in class, and such, and have it be in a smaller scale, smaller space. And then they'll bring it back to their dorm and then go switch it to a desktop, because you can do both. But that's if you have a bigger, I would say, a bigger budget, or a much more wider budget than most students, because most students are going to be buying one device, one thing, and that'll pretty much usually be it. Now, again, there's many, many more areas and more factors than just the hardware you're using. And what I mean by that, to get that out of the way, and my biggest suggestions in this is that if you need to get any software, and for software I mean anything Adobe, which is all pretty much completely subscription based now for Adobe Suite nowadays. So if you need to buy any Adobe stuff, if you're an art student, which is usually, to my knowledge of current times, of doing Procreate or Adobe stuff as well, but mostly Procreate for drawing digitally, that kind of thing. And then, or if you choose to go the Windows route, not for like a computer, but like for like using the Office suite, all that stuff. I'm not sure if it's subscription based still, or in general if it's subscription based, but all the software. This is one of my biggest suggestions. All the software, no matter what student type you are, generally either comes free from your school, or it comes very, very, very heavily discounted from your school. So if you are unsure or unaware of whatever your situation is from your school or your software situation, my biggest piece of advice for software is to wait until you go to school or right before your classes start, because generally speaking, most schools, no matter what type of school it is, will give you a pre starting point, like before you literally start your classes. They'll give you a big checklist, essentially, whether it's online or in person, doesn't really matter, and they'll give you a big checklist of things to get done before you should really be attending class overall. Software is one of those things, and again, it's all either free, completely covered, or included with your tuition while you are a student, or it'll be discounted very, very heavily, like meaning like either half off, or sometimes 80 or 90% off, like an even bigger discount. But don't buy software, don't buy a subscription because you're told to, or because you're offered that by whoever you buy a computer from, whether you buy from Best Buy, Target, online. Don't buy software until you know what you need, and to see if it's covered by your school. Because again, in most cases these days, the software across the board for whatever student type you are will be covered by your school. Not everything, but the majority of it will be, especially for writing papers and that kind of thing. Now, to keep it as simple as I can, for all these different areas of education and student types, that kind of thing, I will say this much: that no matter what kind of student you are, again, whether you're arts, pre-med, nursing, computer science, no matter what type of student you are, whether you are going online, because like for me, again, I am a fully online college student, or I will be. My wife is in person, or at least she started in person. She's going to an online school in the fall with me as well, with different schools, but still both online. So it's a very different version of being in person versus online, just as far as like how they work, but it's still the same kind of hardware essentially overall. So again, it's up to you first on what you want to do for, again, between being mobile, meaning iPads, or a laptop kind of experience. But again, if you want to do both, that's up to you. I don't think that's necessary. I never have. I've always felt one or the other, and usually, in my experience, usually it's all based on how you are with your stuff, like how you take care of it, how, again, how mobile you want to be, and how much space you really have to work with, whether you're living in a dorm or you just like having the ability to bring everything everywhere with you all the time. Now, I've not used, because I know people might comment this later on on this video at some point, but I have not used a PC, so Windows. I've not used a Windows computer in 25 years. I've got my first Mac Apple computer in like 2003, 2004, and so I've not used a PC besides for work in that time frame, which is not the same thing as school at all. So I'm not going to be giving out any advice, any information on a Windows laptop or whatever to do with that, because I literally know nothing about PCs anymore besides the fact that they're good for gaming these days, and you can customize the crap out of them, and that's what they're there. That's what people love them for. But as far as like software or which versions to get or what's even available or pricing, I know nothing about PCs anymore. So I'm not going to do any kind of advice or commentary on that, because I know nothing about PCs anymore. I grew up on a PC, and then I switched to a Mac in the early 2000s. I never looked back. It's just my way of my preferences. So if you're looking for any advice or anything like that on PCs, it will not be from me, because I've not used them forever. I use it for work daily, and it's very, very, very heavily locked down, so I don't know anything about it other than that for that part of it. So with that being said, if you're looking for PC information, again, it will not be in this video. Now moving on, again, software wise, again, go to your school first, see what they offer you for free or for a heavy discount, whatever it might be. The other thing that's not a computer or a tablet or whatever it might be is going to be having, this might sound crazy, but having really, really good headphones. I don't mean earbuds and ear stuff. I don't mean those. I mean actual good over-ear, on-ear or over-ear headphones, because at some point, every single student, no matter what kind of student you are, whether it's arts, pre-med, nursing, computer science, general, it doesn't really matter. Every single student on the planet, on Earth, is going to be writing papers at some point, or doing research on whatever topic you're assigned in class, or doing math, online, whatever it might be. Eventually, every single student is going to be doing that in either heavily or in general education. And so, to me, there's nothing better or nothing worse than not having good headphones. And what I mean by that is getting a good pair of again, over-ear or on-ear noise canceling, if you can, noise canceling headphones. I will not say a brand, I will not say a budget. I mean, it ranges from $50 to $400 or $500. If you buy like the AirPods Pro Max, I don't care what brand you get, make sure you get a good pair of noise canceling headphones, because when it comes to things like just the noise cancellation part of it and the ability to focus, it will help you so much more than you realize. To not have any distractions, not only in the environment, not only in the environment you put yourself in for studying, but also just getting stuff done, focusing, spending your time on the right time to focus on that too. And crazy enough, like just having noise cancellation and having good headphones, not even listening to music all the time, even saying that, but just having a good pair of noise canceling headphones is going to get you a long way, because it'll help you focus. And again, for me personally, again, we have kids. So generally speaking, when we are doing our school stuff, we need them anyways, just to kind of drown out everything else and kind of just be able to focus on things, in a sense on its own. So even if you don't have kids, I still recommend it, just to get rid of everything else for distractions. So that's another thing I'd recommend getting good noise canceling headphones. Again, I'm not going to give you a brand or a budget. Do whatever you feel is good for you on your preferences. Try them all out. Order them on Amazon, wherever. Go in person. Whatever you have to do, try them out and get some good ones. And then finally, I'll say this much for the mobile side of everything, meaning like for iPads, if you decide to go the iPad route, if you are like my wife in any instance where you have to pretty much get everything that goes with an iPad, which means usually a Apple Pencil of some type, as well as a good Bluetooth keyboard that's backlit in most cases as well, then you'll need to add that into your budget too, because the iPads can range for anywhere from like these days like $300-400 on the low end, which I don't recommend for school in any way anymore. They can work, but I don't recommend them, up to the high end of around, if you go crazy on solid state space on the iPad and have networking on it and all the technology, then like $2,000 I think it can be these days. But besides all that, you will need most likely a Bluetooth keyboard for typing things up for papers, as well as an Apple Pencil Pro, especially if you're an art student, because I can guarantee you, if you're an art student, then eventually you're going to be doing, obviously, art. So you're going to be doing drawing and painting and sketching, all that kind of stuff, and you are eventually going to be doing that on an iPad. I'm assuming, if that's what because that's what I recommend for you, is that if you're an art student, unless you're doing very, very, in person, or not, sorry, in person. If you're doing hand drawn stuff, then an iPad may not be the best thing for you. But generally speaking, whenever I met art students, they are always on their iPad practicing and getting better and just doing test drawings and test sketches overall on their iPads. And the one thing I would recommend, if you're an art student, I would not cheap out on if you go with the iPad route. I would not cheap out on which iPad you get. I would highly recommend doing an iPad Pro that's within the last 3 years, I would say. So 2024, obviously through now 2026, mainly because of the way that the screen lamination is done. Because if you go to an entry level iPad, which are okay for general things, as far as we're doing research and writing papers, it's okay for that. But the screen on those entry level iPads are they're not laminated together, which means that the screen that you touch, the border of it, they're not together. I don't know how to put it I don't know how to explain that from a non-tech perspective, but the screen, there's a little bit of space between what you touch and the actual what you see happening on the screen. And so how that translates to when you use an Apple Pencil, for one thing, it's not the same Apple Pencil as a Pro. That's a Pro version versus the USB-C version, but either way, it isn't the same experience. So if you are an art student, I highly recommend, if you go the iPad route, to do any of the M4 or M5 iPad Pros. Doesn't matter what screen size you do, it's up to you again. But get one of those, because if you do an Apple Pencil with that for sketching and drawing on the iPad, you're going to have either a flawless or near flawless experience with your iPad doing drawing and sketching. And then you can translate it, of course, or transfer it into with a Bluetooth keyboard and doing typing and writing papers. Now, again, I will state this over and over again. No matter what kind of student you are, no matter who you are, what you're going to school for, you will be doing a ton of research and a ton of writing papers on everything. If you are, no matter what student you are, you'll be doing that. So make sure, no matter what you buy, make sure you get a device that you feel comfortable on typing, and it's going to have a good battery life of either the full day or the majority of the day. Because if you are walking around campus and you want to be mobile, that's what it's there for. So I just can't recommend enough getting whatever device that you think is going to be the best for you for being mobile and for being comfortable typing on. Again, some people, like my wife, she's very, very comfortable with using a 11-inch iPad Pro with her Bluetooth keyboard. I am not. I can't stand that size. It's too small for me. So for me, I just go to my 16-inch MacBook Pro, and because it's a full keyboard, it's a normal keyboard, so it's what I'm used to. It's what I've used for years, and this is how I personally like to do it, and how I like to type stuff. I just type faster that way on a real computer. And so those are the main areas, I would say, of just making sure you get the right stuff. Now, the one other thing I will say for any mobile users, and again, when I say mobile, I mean iPad users, is that if you're buying that for college, you are most likely going to need to get a Apple Pencil. When I did the research for this video a little bit, there is still just two versions. Now, the main difference between them, there's everything, but the top one, which is the Apple Pencil Pro, the benefits of that is that, again, the latency is either little to none when you're drawing or painting or sketching on the iPad and Procreate or whatever you use. But the best thing about the Apple Pencil Pro, which is to me the coolest stuff, is that where it'll magnetically stick to your iPad on the side to not only charge it but also hold it. So it'll charge and hold it at the same time. It works with most cases flawlessly for that too. But the actual tip of the pencil is much better than the lower end Apple Pencil, which is a USB-C version, which is not the same thing. That one you actually have to unfortunately pull the end of the cap on, or the cap off I should say, and then plug it into your charging port, I believe, and then it charges that way. And then it's a different experience. It's not the same thing. But generally speaking, those USB-C Apple Pencils, to my knowledge of them, which I might be wrong on, but I believe I did the research on it, that they are, again, they're charged via USB-C, so to the charging port on your iPad, depending on which version you have. But there's a little bit of latency on those compared to a Pro. So be very, very aware of that too. And usually they're about the same price. But I have to preface this again. But if you buy one of the more lower level, pricing wise, lower level iPads, which is not going to be a Pro version, then the Apple Pencil Pro will not work for you. So make absolutely sure. I say it again. Make absolutely sure that whatever you buy for your device, if it's an iPad, that you get compatible Apple Pencil or compatible cases with it, because there's so many versions in the last 5 or 10 years of iPads and Apple Pencils, that you need to make sure you get the right compatible version of it, because they do not all work the same way. They do not all work together. So again, if you're getting any iPad Pro in the last 3 to 5 years, the Pro Pencil will work for all of them. I believe it will. And again, it's going to work either near flawlessly or flawlessly with it as well, and it's going to have all those cool features with it too. Whereas on the lower end iPads, which are just fine for basic things, I would not recommend the lower end iPads for sketching or drawing. They will work with USB-C Pencil. They will work, but they won't be as good. And you'll know if you test both the Pro version, like iPad Pro version, versus the actual normal iPad, you'll feel a difference if you draw on both of them. I can promise you that. So go to a store. Again, if you're buying an iPad or anything really, go to the store, whether it's Apple or wherever, where it's on display, and try them out and test them out for yourself. Now again, I'll restate this again. No matter what student you are, what type of student you are, I recommend. It's up to you really at the end of the day for your pricing point, but I would say if you're unsure, always go to a store to try it out. The pricing range these days is even bigger than it's ever been before since the introduction of the MacBook Neo, because that's a brand new computer from Apple. That is now their lowest pricing point for a computer, and it's pretty much a dumbed down, in a good way, like a dumbed down version of what a MacBook Air is still, as far as computer and chipsets and that kind of thing. But it is still a really solid computer for being only $599 and even less with the student discounts. So that one's a good start for computers. If you want to have if you want to do like an entry level laptop for Apple and you don't want to spend a ton of money, then do the MacBook Neo. I've heard it doesn't have the best speakers on there. Like, you're gonna have some allowances, I should say, or some stuff that's not going to be as good as the higher end computers. That's just how it goes with Apple stuff. So you'll have not as good as speakers for music and things like that, but you'll have Bluetooth, you'll have AirDrop, you'll have all that kind of normal stuff that you get with Apple for buying a computer with them. Then from there up, you'll get the MacBook Air, which is again usually the M series of chips, which is again all day battery life, a little bit quicker, a little bit better processing overall. And then above that, it's going to be all the MacBook Pros. Now, for me, that's been my kind of debate for going back to school again for computer science now. And I was debating actually buying a MacBook Neo for computer science. But again, most students, including myself again, is that when you buy a computer or a tablet, either one, you want it to last for the entire college experience, or as much of the college experience. So I was initially only going to buy a MacBook Neo, or was going to eventually get that in the fall for school. But I want to replace my existing 16-inch MacBook Pro with a new one, essentially, with the newest chipsets, and upgrade the memory and SSD and all that kind of stuff. So it will cost more money, but I know that if I take care of it and update it, it'll last for another five or more years, essentially. So again, it's up to you on what your preference is, what your budget is, what you want out of your device, and all that goes into that too. And again, I'm not going to recommend exactly which version for which student, because generally speaking, you already know what you need. But however, I will say this much: no matter what student type you are, whether you're an art student or a computer science major or just a general student, if you just want to get a good solid laptop, I would recommend, probably for the majority of you guys, a MacBook Air or the MacBook Pro. Now, you don't need to go crazy on specs on it. I mean, again, you don't need to update, or I should say upgrade all the SSD and RAM and all that. You can if you want to. It'll it'll be quicker down the long road as far as like when it gets a little bit older, but you don't have to. Like even my 16-inch MacBook Pro is just a base model. It's a 512 gigabyte SSD, and it's been just fine. But every now and then it does get full, and I have to empty it off quite a little bit. So, and then nowadays you can literally up your SSD storage to even 8 terabytes, but it costs a lot of money. So again, keep in mind that that it will cost you more money to upgrade everything on a computer for Apple too. And then the final thing is that remember with anything Apple that no matter which way you go, that whether it is mobile, so iPad or on a Mac, that the more you spend, the more functionality you will get. What I mean by that is the more capabilities that your computer will have, meaning that you'll have more options to plug things into it. So like my MacBook Pro has, I believe it's got 3 USB-C ports on there and HDMI out, and then a few other things as well. So again, the more money you spend, if you choose to do so for that reason, you'll have more peripherals, more IOs on it, which is helpful and needed for some people too. So again, I'm not telling you which one to buy. It's just my recommendations for what I see overall, and what I experienced in college myself, and what I'm going to be doing for the future of myself as well, and between them both as well. So it's up to you and your preferences. And hopefully this video helps a little bit more. Again, it doesn't answer every question because every person is different with their preferences, what size they want, and all that goes into that. And the last thing I'll touch on, because I just remembered it, is if you're an art student and you are unsure of which iPad Pro to get, if you're going to get an iPad Pro as an art student between the 11 and 13-inch iPad Pro, go to an Apple store and draw on both sizes, because they are very, very, very different, especially for drawing and sketching. So do not buy one based on whatever computer you've owned in the past. Go to a store and use an Apple Pencil and draw on it and see what's comfortable for your hand and for how you just swipe on it and just go through it. Because the biggest thing, like, I would always see in my retail stores for my job was people exchanging the iPad Pros or iPads in general for a different size, because the research that they did was different than what they actually ended up preferring when they bought it and got it home and actually used it. So go to a store and just see what you like better between 11 and 13 Pros, because they are different for feeling as well overall. So hopefully this video helped a little bit for some of you guys, if you're curious or confused or whatever it might be. And again, if you enjoyed it at all, give it a thumbs up, and of course subscribe for more tech content in the future. Thanks for watching as always, and I will see you all in the next one.